introduce our guest. His name is Dr. John West. He's Vice President and Senior Fellow of the Discovery Institute in Seattle. He serves as Managing Director of the Institute's Center for Science and Culture. And by the way, he co-founded that institute, that center, with philosopher of science Stephen Meyer, who we love, way back in 1996. His current research examines the impact of science and scientism on public policy and culture. His other areas of expertise include constitutional law, American government and institutions, and religion and politics. John West holds a PhD in government from Claremont Graduate University and was previously an associate professor of political science at Seattle Pacific University, which is a university that we're going to talk about some in this podcast. And at that university, he chaired the Department of Political Science and Geography, and he has directed a dozen documentaries. He's written or edited some 13 books, including the book we're going to be talking about today, his most recent book, Stockholm Syndrome, Christianity, and the subtitle's important: Why America's Christian Leaders Are Failing and What We Can Do About It. I think your call to action is very important when you talk about equipping yourselves for battle, do no harm, pray. You talk about what parents and grandparents can do, ways in which you can protect your children and your grandchildren. You emphasize how important it is for kids to learn to think critically. You talk about preparing your children for college if that's where they plan to go. You talk about what young people can do. I mean, this book has so much positive information. So it's not just cursing the darkness, but it's building a lighthouse in the midst of the gathering storm. You talk about what pastors and teachers can do, and what can Christian leaders involved in governance of organizations do. I think that's a poignant part of the book in terms of instruction, in terms of making a difference.
Yeah. Well, over the years, I've had the blessing to be able to counsel various people in board or governance positions. And so I try to distill some of the things I've learned from that and from myself being on a board of elders and working on committees and things. And I think that the high calling of whether you're a board of trustees of a Christian university or school or just on a board of elders is that you need to view that your primary goal as a Christian is not fundraising. It's not just rah-rahing everything. It's being discerning and making sure your institution follows its mission. And that there are tactics that are often used if an institution is going off a kilter. There are tactics that are used to try to prevent that. And one is, oh, well, you're not the expert. Just trust us, whether we're the teachers or faculty or if it's a charismatic pastor, I'm God's chosen one. There are these tactics to get the people who are called by God to hold, governance ability, to get them to give that up. And so I'm trying to help encourage people called to governance that no, it is your responsibility. And there are some things you can do. Most boards, at least Christian boards, try to run by consensus, and often there's a modified Robert's Rules of Order or something. But that gives you tremendous power that if, say, something is being pushed on you, simply raising an objection and forcing a discussion can end up changing something dramatically, because there may be other people on the board who also don't agree. But if one person speaks up and initiates a discussion, I mean, the way a lot of things in Christian institutions, in my knowledge, end up getting done is when they're swept under the rug and there isn't an open discussion among the board, let alone other people. And if you can force a discussion, then a lot of good things can come with that. But I do think that if I gave one thing, the number one thing that I think a board member of a church or a school or other parachurch ministry needs to be concerned about is the quality of the people they hire. In government, I'm an old political science professor, so I like government analogies, but in government, there's an old saying that personnel are policy. And in fact, whatever you think of Trump, good or negative, I think people can see a dramatic difference between Trump in his first term and Trump in his second term in hiring people who actually support his mission. Now, you may think the mission is bad, but he's hiring people who actually are willing to carry out his mission, whereas the first time he got a lot of pushback on people. And so similarly, if you have a Christian institution and you're not making sure that every faculty member, every teacher, or every pastoral staff member at a church really fulfills your mission, that's your biggest disservice, because that's where the rubber meets the road. They're the people who are called to mentor. They're the people who are teaching. They're the people who are carrying out the mission. And so you can't have people who aren't really committed. And I remember as an elder, when we had to interview people for pastoral positions, and we were considering one at one particular church that I was an elder of. And it was when this church was part of the, embarrassingly admit, was part of the PCUSA, which is a really liberal denomination. This church was not, and ultimately we led the church out of that denomination to a more conservative one. But at this point, someone wanted to be in a position, and we had a series of questions we wanted to ask to make sure that, what's your belief of biblical authority? What's your belief on marriage? What's your belief on, is there just one way to salvation through Jesus? And we want everyone to respond to that. And we were sort of told by some, well, no, you don't ask them. Just let me talk to the person and feel them out. You don't need to get written answers to these questions, or you don't need to ask them yourself. But as a board, we ended up insisting, and then that person ended up withdrawing because they didn't really fit our mission statement. But had we not insisted on specific answers to these specific questions, or these weren't the be-all, end-all questions, but they were indicator questions. And if we just farmed out to someone else who wanted the person hired to just talk and report back, they might have been hired. And so, the most crucial thing you could do is make sure that your staff and your workers of your Christian organization are solid. Because if they're not, it's the gift that keeps giving, and they will find thousands of ways, both consciously and unconsciously, to undercut your mission.